So warm-up number 67, we good? It's to sketch a box plot and check for outliers. All right, check with the neighbors, see what they got, please, so we can move on. All right, let's see, were there any outliers? JC? 23, Michael Jordan. That is correct. All right, so, let's see, something like that. Let's see, you got something like that? Yes? All right, good. All right, copy the agenda for today. Warm-up number 67, Intro to Probabilities. Your home play is exercises 1 through 14 at the end of 4-1. So go to Probabilities 4-1. At the end, you're going to see the exercises 1 through 14 only. Now, for some of them, you don't have to copy the whole thing because they show you like spinners and stuff like that, or a set of events. So just work with the answers, please. All right. So, once again, tonight's home play, numbers 1 through 14 at the end of exercises for 4-1. 4-1. Lesson 4-1 on probability. All right, objective for today, I can identify and compute basic probability. I can identify and compute basic probability. So today, so being that you guys are my seniors, I'm going to give you some terminology today and some rules and such, but I'm going to ask you to go find me what they are. This basic terminology is simple to understand, and I'm excluding some of it so that tomorrow I can address those with another activity, but today would be more of a just a scavenger hunt and trying to gather information. So here we go. Basic probability. So yesterday, the day before, we started with the dice, right? A little game that we played. Is that correct? Yes, Mr. Q. From there, yesterday we added the spinners to that, and we came out with all the outcomes and such. Well, all those things that we did in the past 2 days were examples of just basic probability. Now, in regards to probability, probability is broken down into 3 areas. Copy that concept map, please. We know that probability is a chance of an event occurring, but there's 3 basic types of probability: classical, empirical, and subjective. Right now I'm going to give you a reading assignment where you're going to be searching for definitions for some of those, or at least trying to find some examples as to what they are so you can understand what they are. However, just to give you a heads up, the example that we worked on yesterday is an example of classical probability. Yesterday's example was classical probability. Everybody got that? Yes? All right. So, classical probability, I gave you guys a formula. You wrote it down. Is that correct? We used it, and we know how to use it, and so on and so forth. However, today, since I'm adding more parts of probability, I want you to go find me as well the formula for empirical probability. You're going to add another formula, which is for empirical probability. I'm going to give you right now the reading section to look for it. All right? So once again, we got that formula for classical, but we need one for empirical. Tell your neighbor, what formula do you need, please? All right, thank you. Next, copy this terminology. We need to cover some terminology, which is, like I said, basic terminology for probability. And the terminology reads probability experiment, outcome, sample space, event, equally likely events, and complement of an event. Now, for complementary probability, there is a formula. Don't copy that. I'm going to go and go ahead and explain that with an activity so you guys can actually understand it. And that's usually the case in regards to formulas. I try to kind of like either show you guys where they come from when we do. Remember, when we were in maybe Algebra 1 students that we came up with the quadratic formula from the completing the square. You're like, oh yeah, I got that down, Mr. Q. All right, good. And so on and so forth. So I like to understand the formulas before we actually use the formula. So with that said, terminology. There's 6 of them. Everybody got it? All right. And there's 4 rules that I also want you to look through so you can read through them and understand them. Probability rule number 1, probability rule number 2, probability rule number 3, and probability rule number 4. All right. So today is going to be more like a, it's a session. I'm trying to blend a little bit of a taste, or I'm giving you a glimpse of what you're going to be doing in college with some of these sessions. Some sessions are going to consist of doing activities in labs, which is what we've been doing pretty much with the activities before we get to formulas and such. But there's going to be some other sessions where the instructor is going to give you time to read through and get in teams to answer some of the terminology that we're going to cover for this session. So, does everybody have all the terminology, concept maps, and such? All right, so I'm going to forward the screen. And the next screen is a PDF viewer. I'm going to give you guys some time to look through in there so you can fill in the spaces that you wrote down, like the terminology, the rules. Look for the formula for the empirical probability, and read through, see if you can find anything in regards to definitions for classical, empirical, and subjective probability. All right? So I'll give you guys some time for that. Ready and go. All right. Let's see. Probability rules. Share with your neighbor what you got. Make sure they understand it. I'm going to call on someone so they can give us that in an example. All right, let's see. Probability rule number 1. What'd you get for rule number 1? That. All right, did everybody understand that? Good. So rule number 1 says that any probability has to fall between 0 and 1. That's why they label it as probability of an event less than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 1. So anywhere from 0 to 1. Everybody understands what that means? Yes? All right. Probability rule number 2, pass the one. So if an event cannot occur, then it has to be what? 0. Obvious, right? That's why I say, like, this is just terminology that you just need to know. Probability rule number 3, pass the one. All right, help them out, Jet. So if something's going to happen that is certain to happen, then the probability is 1. So let's see, let's think about certain things. What is certain that time's going to pass? Are we going to get to, let's see, is time going to get to 3 o'clock? Of course, because time continues. So that probability is always 1. And last but not least, probability number 4. Pass the one. Sum of all outcomes is equal to 1. So when you, remember yet the other day that we were playing the dice, that, and then from there we were finding the probability in regards to the odds and the evens? What did some of you say? Well, it's half, and the other half is also half. So half plus half is 1. All right? So the rest of them, the terminology, hopefully you already have it. Tomorrow we'll just cover that a little bit more. And then we're going to also look at the formula for empirical probability. So once again, try and work on numbers 1 through 14 at the end of that lesson on your book. And we'll continue with this tamales. I'll start the video right there.